Every relationship experiences challenges and unconscious patterns that cause hurt from time to time because it is part of being human. We are all in this together. So, the topic that we're going to talk about today is work. You hear this all the time. It takes work to build a relationship. What does that mean? What does it mean that it takes work to build this relationship? So, I'm going to read an excerpt out of this relational book. It's called The Inner Work of Relationships. Then, after that, we're going to go into the actual how to do this. So let's begin. True love isn't about the rush of attraction or infatuation of the honeymoon phase of a relationship. It's not about feeding our ego by always getting our way, boosting our own self-importance by always being right or admired. Rather, it's about two souls humbly devoted and willing to weather the storms of life together as a team. This requires accountability, tolerance, and willingness to put in the work to build a strong foundation of cooperation. It's natural to assume the words work and love are contradictory, but get honest with your reflections. Anything worthwhile in life requires effort. Think about learning a new skill, such as playing an instrument or the process of transforming your health and your body. At first, it may be challenging, even frustrating, but as we continue to practice, improve, and consistently show up, the results become more and more rewarding with time. The same is true of relationships. When we put in the effort to build a strong foundation and work through challenges together, we are, in turn, create an experience of romance that is beyond anything that we could read about in books. Okay, so now let's talk about what actually putting in the work talks about. So, in a normal day, you're going to be living your life by the status quo, right? And then sometime throughout the day, you're going to be triggered. Okay. When you get triggered, it's going to be by something either your wife says to you or some kind of argument you guys get into. Something is going to cause you to be triggered and lose control, basically, because your emotions take over instead of you staying in your logical sense, right? And that what that does is it triggers a cycle downward, right? And you're going to feel a couple emotions. Examples are rage, anger, irritation. And this is what's known as the drift, where we drift from the status quo of who we are into a pattern of hurt, right? So we'll feel anger, we'll feel rage, irritation. And that, however we react in that, for me, when I got angry, I would have shut down. And when I shut down, I distanced myself from my wife, which causes her pain, right? And then we're not good for like another week. It took us like a week to recover back in the day. And so it was constantly like in a horrible state, horrible pattern that we were in. Other people on the other side will get angry, right? If you can get angry and push them away before they push you away, that's another defense mechanism or coping mechanism that we come up with usually in childhood. So as we're reacting in this type of way, then we come up against a couple other feelings. We feel guilt and we feel shame. Can't write shame. Guilt is basically saying, I'm sorry for what I did. I feel bad for what I did to you. Shame is, I'm not good enough. I'm just a horrible person, right? And then when we hit that point, we arrive in the pit, right? And then as we start to deal with our emotions and they calm down a little bit, we get a sense of, okay, you know what? I just want to get back to where we were, right? Where I'm at now sucks. I just want to get back to where we were. So as you start working to get back to where you were, you start rising up again. The thing is, you're not rising up into a new person. You're rising up to be the same person you were beforehand, just waiting for another trigger, right? Just waiting for another event, something else she says that hurts you, something else that goes on that causes you to spiral in this never ending karmic cul-de-sac, right? And we call this the false lift. It's not a true lift, right? So most people are stuck in this cycle. This is why their relationships never get better. This is why the relationships never improve and people don't stop growing. And eventually this cycle gets so bad that people think that the only way out of the cycle is to leave the relationship. The only problem is that the problem, you bring that to your next relationship, right? You not being able to heal from whatever this trigger is this hurt inside of you. You bring it to the next relationship. And sure, during the honeymoon phase, you don't feel it. But as soon as the honeymoon phase wears off, you start this cycle all over again. So, doing the work, what does that mean? That means you're going to get triggered. That's going to be happen. It's going to happen. You're going to have to get used to and being okay with the discomfort of being triggered. But how do we do that to start with? So as we get triggered and we start to feel this rage, this anger, this irritation, there's that framework that we're going to introduce right now. And this framework has four sections. And the first one is to stop. To understand that I'm being triggered right now and I just need to stop what I'm doing. I'm not going to shut down. I'm not going to react in anger. I'm just going to stop. Because once we are able to stop, we're able to kind of start to deal with what's going on. We have come to the place where we become aware that this cycle is starting. Awareness that we're about to spiral is the very first step. And being able to stop in this awareness is how we begin. From stop, we move over to submit. We have to submit to ourselves the reality of what we're living, right? If we can't accept the truth that we're being triggered right now, if we can't accept the truth of what is happening in this environment, we can't move on to the next phase. And the next phase, is struggle. This is where we start to really what happened, what's going on. And this is the most difficult phase to go through because you have to understand that what was it that actually caused me to spiral? You said this, but why did it make me feel that way? Why did it make me spiral out of this? Did I do something before this to make you feel that way? What is going on here? In this situation, we're not applying blame to anyone. We're not saying it's your fault, it's my fault. It's like, this is the reality. This is the truth of the situation. What is going on here? And then from here, we can move on to strike. Once we are able to go to stop, submit to the situation, struggle with what's going on, now we can strike. Now we can actually put forth action to change the situation. Okay. When you are able to do that, say about right here, we recognize that, right? We do the whole process. We stop, we submit to the situation, we struggle with what's going on. We're honest and brutally honest about how we're feeling, how she's feeling, right? And then from there, we can say, well, do I want to be right or do I want to get what I want? And that's what this whole process is about is, do I want to be right? Which is why my body reacted that way, because it wants to be right. So it caused me to rage, anger, irritation, and fall back down. Or do you want to get what you want? Do you want to go back to the pit, or do you want to rise up to a new person? Do you want to heal from this trigger and rise up to a new person? So once you do the stop, submit, struggle, strike, and you work through that and you deal with it, you come with a plan of attack on how to move on from this, then you rise up into the bigger version of who you are. And this next bigger version of who you are, we call that the true lift, right? This is the new story that you're telling yourselves, because this whole process is built upon stories. Tony Robbins says it best: change your story, change your life. This framework here of stop, submit, struggle, strike is the actual way that you change your story. And I never really understood change the story, change your life. I mean, I get the concept, but the question comes into, well, how do you actually do that, right? Through this framework, this stop, submit, struggle, strike. That's the actual how you do this. And another way to look at this true lift here is basically saying that you started here with story A, right? And then as you went through the 4S framework, you moved on over to a new story, story B, right? It's all in the stories on the reason why we were triggered this way. If our story was that she is just a nasty woman, well, then we're not going to change it. We're going to stick with our story at story A. But if we turn it onto she's hurting and she doesn't know how to express it, maybe I can help pull that out so we can deal with that together. If that's your new story, then you guys can work together to a solution to fix this for not only you, but also her. And that is what happens at story B. That is what this whole cycle is trying to build us up into. This is the framework. This is the how you do that. But you have to be able to stop. First and foremost, submit to the situation, struggle with what is this that's going on inside of me, inside of her, what happened, and then from there, strike. Strike means you come up with a solution, a game plan on how to move forward from this, right? It's basically the moment where you say, do I want to be right, or what is it that I want to get? And then once you determine what it is you want to get, you strike towards that goal. So I hope this framework was helpful for you. Follow for more, and I love you guys. Have a good night.